اليوم إن شاء الله بتحدث. I'm very glad إن أنا راح أكون أول speaker today. بسبب I hope that what you're going to get out is a north star for you to guide you for your individual problems in terms of the employee engagement. And إن شاء الله بتكلم من البيج بالثيري، بعدين نرجع كيف كل واحد فيكم يقدر يطبق الكلام اللي احنا نشوفه. هذه الأهداف اللي احنا نبغى نوصل لها إن شاء الله اليوم. إن شاء الله راح تكون خفيف. It's going to be light as much as possible. So, is everybody agree with that term? That's why we are here, صح? Higher employee engagement is good for the organization. This is the proposition كل واحد فينا في ال HR is trying to make for the person who is paying the money for the initiatives. I used to study IT, my bachelor degree, so I was looking at the world as zeros and one, true or false. بعدين دخلت في الماستر في ال human resources, social science, the ultimate gray area. You have to understand, everybody wants to tell you something, you have to look at the details of the proposition that you have in front of you. So let's decipher what we are looking at here right now. في كلام ملغم، كلام أو loaded words. Let's look at two of them. The first one is higher. What does higher mean? How can we measure it? How can we prove that we are in a higher employee engagement level than before? And the other word is, of course, is good. What do we mean by good? If you are in a private sector, you have to translate that good into money. You have to connect the dots. You have to do the ROI as you are as an HR professional. Now, how to deal with higher? We can do surveys. There are tools to measure, right? That of course, we don't have something that called engagement. We have other things that measure, somebody established that they are related to engagement. For example, tardiness. If employees come on time, most of them, then you have low level of tardiness. That usually means it's a high level of engagement. So you have to triangulate all that information from different levels that you can actually measure to say that we have a higher engagement or lower. Or you can see observation. So these are the typical tools that we use for there. But of course, that's not why we are here, right? We are here to measure what do we mean by good. So when we look at good, this is basically the value proposition. This is the thing that we are trying to make, saying that you spend money, give me money, I will take that money into initiatives. Those initiatives will yield into a higher engagement, which yields to money, usually typically in the private sector. That's the value proposition. Agree? Right? But something small is missing. And that some small thing is really critical for making that proposition correct. Right? We all hear about culture. Remember the culture will eat your strategy for breakfast? Right? If you don't have the right culture, you will not be able to have a right engagement level, and you will not have happy employees, and you will not have a productive employee. So let's look at culture. What do we mean by what's the kind of changes that we have? And all culture is okay. Sometimes people come to me and tell me, Nawaf, there are usually CEOs. We have an issue with tardiness, blah, blah, blah. I want to make a fingerprint attendee. I say, depend on your value proposition of your organization, how you are competing in the market. That will dictate, yes, that will fit the right culture that you need to compete in this market. If you are in a FedEx, for example, you want discipline. You want military discipline. You want people to come on time, to deliver on time. You're looking at efficiency. That's completely different culture than if you are a product innovator. You are there to create innovation, IP, all of that. You don't apply the military rules that you applied there. So we have three different cultures, three different competitive advantage strategies that any company can adopt. Operational excellence, that's the first one. Second one is product innovation. I am the innovative in the market. The third one is customer intimacy. The first one I'm saying, the value proposition is, this is my way. The product, my way. The second one, the product, the new way. Product innovation. The third one is the product, customer, your way. So I compete by all three different strategies will require different cultures. You cannot apply one. Of course, there's going to be a dominant culture, and there are subcultures, right? You have security in your R&D organization. You want security to have basma. You want security to have basmon, because that's the nature of the culture that you need for that organization. Okay? I'm conscious about the time. So, now culture, it's a system, right? If we look at a system, it's an open system. People come in, people leave out. The interaction between will yield out the productivity that we look. Now, there are three different levels of complexity in terms of systems. So we have the simple system. So we have low number of variables that I can predict beforehand how the system will yield if I intervene this way or the other way, right? So I know how the system, the nature of the system, how it will react to my intervention. The second one is complicated. There are a huge number of variables. So in order for me to intervene is that I need to look at the landscape, look at all the variables, and simulate how the system will yield if I intervene one way or another. And the last one is the complex, which why I'm here. Organization, most of them are what we call a complex adaptive system. Anybody heard about the Cobra effect? I like stories, right? Cobra effect. Back when the British were ruling India, one of the governors had a cobra pest problems. So he gathered all the big wigs in that place and asked them for advice. What do we do? So they said, we will do a bounty. Every citizen brings out a cobra, we will give them a rupiah or money or something like that. They said, great idea. Now we change the incentive, we change the citizen of our city to become pest controllers. Why? Because we incentivize them to do so. Agree? Straightforward. After 6 months, they identified that the farmers who were growing wheat stopped growing wheat and start growing cobra, because cobra is more profitable for them. So it goes against what they wanted. They said, okay, cancel the what? The bounty, no more bounty. Now the cobra farmers, before they were asset, now they became liability. So every farmer threw the cobra out on the street, so they ended up with more cobras than they started with. This is the situation we deal in organizations. You cannot predict how the organization will react. Only in hindsight you can look back and say, oh, it makes sense now why this reacted. By the way, if somebody can tell you that they can predict, let them predict the stock market, because stock market is also a complex adaptive system. Complex adaptive system consists of individual, network of people who are independent and coexist and co-adaptive to the reaction of other people around them. Okay? Just bring that out of the system. Now, what does It's always a power issue, battery issue. So the bad news is that the complex adaptive systems are unpredictable. We cannot predict how it's going to behave after we intervene. Second thing is they are always on the flux. Organizations are always on the move. I'm sure what I'm saying, you feel it, right? Everybody feels it every day. You are working on something here, then another fire comes, another fire comes, and another fire comes, and you look back like where we are right now, and the year ends. And all the plans to do things went somewhere else. Complex adaptive system is a snowflake. And I don't mean snowflake in the woke way of looking at it. It's not sensitive. No, snowflake is that every complex adaptive system is a unique system. Like your fingerprint. Isn't that unique? The same thing is about organization. They are unique in time and space, that the situation that you are facing right now have never been faced before. So each challenge that you are facing, and even if they're another organization, they will not have you. Right? So all the problems that you are facing, I feel, I put it on the bad news, but for me it's a good news, right? It's inspiring for us, challenging, that I don't have to go and replicate what others do. This is a unique situation. I have to do the best thing I can do. Now, the good news about the complex adaptive system is they are anti-fragile. Time, right? Okay. Anti-fragile is a great book, by the way, called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Imagine that you are a farmer and you are going to the farm every day, and between your house and the farm is a hill, right? And you have two transportational systems. The first one, we call it a tractor. The second one, we call it a horse. So every day you go through that hill, creates a stress on that system that you have, right? Which system you think will get better by time? Right? A horse, the muscles will get better every time you create that kind of stress on a daily basis. So as a system, it will improve, will become better. But the tractor, which is a robust design engineering system, that stress will create what? You have to do more maintenance, failure, it will fail down the road. But the other system, what we call is anti-fragile, that gains, that becomes better from the stress that comes from the environment, is what the nature of the complex adaptive system. You've seen that in the COVID. Suddenly, all the rules are changed, yet we were able to adapt as an organization. Complex adaptive system is known for novelty. Novelty is a neutral word. Novelty could be good, novelty could be bad. But the flux that comes with the nature of the system creates those novelty, new way of challenging, new way of adapting to a new environment that you have. And finally, complex adaptive system is a resilience to environmental shock. One of the things that we learn is that companies who have high leverage, very lean organization, are not ready when the shock comes from the environment. And shock will come from the environment. And you have to have that little bit of fat, little bit of wiggle space in your system to be able to adapt and take that shock. And because the chances are, the day after that shock, you're going to be one of the very few who survive that shock. And you will make a lot of money out of that. So putting that, again, you have to go back to the person who's spending that money. Now, when we look at it from that perspective, then we have a behavior or way approach how to deal with that problem. So in a simple problem, lower number of variables, our approach is sense, categorize, response. Sense mean look at what the problem is, categorize it because it's a simple. I go to a place what we call best practices, and that's the only place for best practices, by the way. Because it's a simple, I can predict where things could happen. I can know, right? Then we go to a complicated with a higher number of variables. The approach is sense, analyze, and response. Right? Because now I have to, there are too many number of variables. I have to crunch the numbers. I have to make sure to connect the dots between the action and reaction. And finally, the complex adaptive system, which most of the context that we are dealing with as an organizational, is that we probe, sense, and response. I will explain that more. Probe means that you intervene a little bit. You start by saying, I don't know. And now I will say why I'm using that old theme for the presentation. Because when we have the thought that our problem is an ecological problem, our problem is not an engineering problem. It's a completely different way of approaching the problem. If you say engineering, then you say I can predict the behavior of the system. Thus, if we intervene that way, the reaction of the system will go to the beneficial side of it. That's the engineering thinking. I can predict. And engineering goes into these two areas. But since we are ecological problem, I don't know how the system reacts. So how to deal with problems is that I start with a small intervention, pilot. I intervene and see how the system will react to that intervention. If it's good, I increase the resources. If it's bad, I kill it. And when we said that novelty, it's an engine of novelty, this is how we yield the benefit of having that system. And then what we look at is emergent practice. Emergent, that it's local. It's like, you know, الله يكافينا الشر اللي فيه عنده كلى مشاكل في الكلى زراعة الكلى مهما كان kidney implant your system will reject it because it's a foreign thing, right? But imagine that you can grow your own kidney from within your system. That's what emergent practice is. You start with saying, I don't know, but the system will give me the good chances of finding out. And it's going to be local, and it's going to be organic and fit to the time and space that you are in. So this is I hope that what you take away with, that's why I'm putting the ecology. It's something interacted. A quick story that happened in Yellowstone, for example. They hunted wolves before, so there was no alpha predator in the park. And so somebody was looking at it from zoology part. The other person was looking at it from topology. Topology, you know, the design, the rivers, the banks, the mountains, they're looking at it. So they had a problem, is that rivers were taking out ground, so they are moving because it was not the grass that used to be on the river banks to hold the river where it is, it's not there anymore. So somebody else was doing some other problem. They reintroduced wolves to the park. What happened? Those wolves starting to become predators of the gazelles. The gazelles were eating the lush grass on the riverbank, right? So they were not allowing the grass to hold the ground, and the river moves. So something for us, has no connection whatsoever. But in the ecological system, ecological way of looking at things, everything is connected. I remember a statement by Thomas Friedman, and I like it very much. He said that you influence everything, you control nothing. This is the attitude we should go while trying to engineer, right, the engagement that we have. We control nothing, but we will influence everything, and we are responsible on what's the consequences of our interventions that we have. Good? Okay, so now how to come up with ideas. Now, if we all agree that we are working in a complex adaptive system, how we can come up with ways that we can get the benefit out of it, right? So the first one is crowdsourcing. You know what crowdsourcing, right? You open up the gates for all players in that one system to be participant. They have ideas, they have ownership, they have a skin in the game. So you can open up for them to participate, to ask you to suggest something. Now, it takes maturity, right? And again, you have to start somewhere. If you say, no, my culture is not mature enough, all employees will ask for more benefits. Yes, okay. So it's a dance that you have to make within your organization. It's a conversation that you have to make. Listen, if we all increase our payment, this is how our P&L is going to look like. And we will not survive and we will lose our job. So really, that's not a serious statement, for example, right? So you start taking that conversation. All of you as an organization, you take yourself to what's the best way of doing it. Second one is parallel piloting. As we said, this is the probing part. Hawthorne effect. Remember, there is a factory, they were measuring performance, the Taylorism. They were measuring performance, and they increased the lighting on the factory floor. The productivity went up. They said, okay, we found a way to increase productivity. And while they're working, so they're going to say, we're going to spend $100,000 to change all the lights and put brighter lights, right? So while they're doing that, the brightness of the factory floor went down. What do you think productivity happened? Went up or down? Actually went up. People react to novelty. I don't react to something, you think that this is the reason. People react to something new, a new boss, a new hire, a new system, a new things, and everybody attaches their hopes toward that new novelty in the system. And when you ask them about that system, they will say, oh, we call it a happy sheet. Huh? Oh, it's a great thing. Because they are not answering what everybody thinks, they are answering of what they feel and believe about that novelty. So that's why we said parallel piloting. So to get out of that effect, we do, when we have suggestion of how to change the culture or something like that at the same time, we have to do it in a parallel. 3. And this is the last slide. So we do it 3 pilots, have the same resources, and we have to measure it, so we sift out these kind of things. Safe to fail initiatives. We have to design things with the expectation that things could fail miserably, right? And we have to be ready for that. And we are responsible for that because we are who are creating that interventions in that organization. Measure impact, of course. We have to measure impact. At the end of the day, we need to make that proposition between dollars to dollars. It's our job to make that connection and repeat. This is not a static, we are not after static stability. We are after dynamic stability. This is a house of cards. I'm trying to drive a bicycle. The faster I go, the more stable I become. If I have achieve that dynamic, then I am ready for the organization, whatever comes from the environment, whether internally or externally, I'm going to be ready for that. Yeah? I hope I gave you that North Star I promised at the beginning of the speech. This is my LinkedIn profile. Let's connect. Thank you very much.